Welcome back to the Multiple Careers podcast. This is episode number 22, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about how you can overcome the fear of changing jobs. And there are 5 things that I will talk about that you can try, and it might help you or it might not work for you, but in any case, I think it's worth trying. So right now, you might be at a point in your career where you just had enough of your current job. You just feel that you don't want to stay any longer because you're not really growing, you're not really learning anything new, or you might even feel that you are severely underpaid in your current company. And because of that, you're thinking that it's about time to make a move. You've been working at the same company for far too long, in some cases even a decade, and it's really time to look out for new opportunities. And yet something is holding you back. Something is keeping you from just moving ahead and submitting your applications and putting yourself out there. It might manifest in delaying the process, in procrastination, or just feeling lazy about it or not motivated. But deep down inside, the reason might be that you are just fearful, that you're experiencing some kind of fear about where all of this will go. The first thing that you need to do if you are afraid of changing jobs or even making a complete career change is realizing that the fear you're experiencing is not something that is life-threatening. As we all know, fear is an emotion that can be very useful because it can protect us from actually dangerous things, like when you're crossing the street. If you don't feel any fear, you will just continue on walking even though there are thousands of cars passing by. So fear can be something really useful. But sometimes fear can also really just be a useless obstacle, like in the case of when you're planning to change your job. So in this case, rather than being afraid of a life-threatening situation, what we are actually afraid of is oftentimes just the discomfort that comes with the process of changing your job. And I want to talk about 2 types of discomfort, and let's look at this in much more detail, because once you understand this, I believe that the amount of fear that you're experiencing will decrease by a lot. So the first kind of fear that you might be facing is the fear of experiencing discomfort in facing new people and processes. I know this is a mouthful. When you change your job or make a complete career change, it also means that you are thrown into a completely new environment. Even though you stay in the same industry and role, but you move to a different company, they will have a different kind of corporate culture and a different way of maybe people interacting with each other. And in general, you just need to get used to working together with a whole new set of people. And for some people, especially extroverts, perhaps this can be something that's exciting. This could be the advantage of looking for a new job. But if you do not really like interacting with new people, then this can really be something that's holding you back, especially if you've been working in your current job for a really long time and you've become so accustomed to the people that you're working with and you've become friends with a lot of your colleagues. You're hanging out together not only at work, but even after work, in the evenings, on Fridays, on the weekends, you get a drink together and so on, and things kind of get familiar and comfortable and you start feeling that you're a family. So when you think about changing jobs, you think that you have to leave all of this behind and have to get used to new people. So that is the first kind of discomfort that you might fear. The second fear that you might be facing is the fear of facing the discomfort of new processes. And this is not something to be underestimated. In your current company, if you've been there for a long time, you know how everything works. You know who you need to look for to get what kind of information or to get what done, and you know how the whole process flow works and what you can do, what you cannot do, and so on. But when you move to a new job, what might go through your mind is that, okay, if I move there, I have to learn about the processes again. I mean, even though there are industry standards, everything is done slightly different in different companies. So you will need to learn everything from the beginning. You will need to know which department is actually responsible of what, and sometimes the delineation is not that clear, so it takes a while to get used to it, and you need to learn about the process flows, about the workflows, and sometimes that can just feel like a big hassle. Isn't it just much more easier to stay put where you are, where everything is so familiar, everything has gotten so comfortable? Yes, that might be the case, but if you are keen on changing your job and making an improvement to your career, then you need to face this fear of discomfort head on. You need to really drill down to the discomfort and find out, what am I actually afraid of? What am I actually afraid of facing? And after you've identified all the things that might possibly make you uncomfortable about moving companies, about changing jobs, it doesn't mean that it automatically makes everything easier, but at least it kind of prepares you for the process. And you know that, okay, if I do change jobs, then I have to face this, but this is really the worst thing that will happen. It will not get much worse than this, and it's not as bad as I imagine it to be. So if you're procrastinating, if you're delaying your job change process, your career change process, don't think that you're just being lazy, but first of all, acknowledge that you might have a fear of discomfort. Acknowledge the fear and drill down to the discomfort and understand it, and then you will be able to face it better. The second thing that you can do if you feel kind of scared about the whole job changing process is to simply try and imagine an alternate scenario. So scenario number one would be that you change your job and you take a while to adjust to the discomfort, etc. And after a while, everything's fine. And in the best case, your career and your life even improves and you feel happier and you are more fulfilled in your new career. Now, let's imagine scenario 2 as well. Scenario 2 is, what happens if I stay in this job for the next 3 to 5 years, or even 10 years, or even forever? Because that's a possibility, right? I mean, if you don't look for another job and if you don't get laid off, then chances are that you'll just stay in that company forever. And if right now you are 30 years old and you're planning to work until you're at least 60 or 65, that means that you would be working in that company for 35 years. So imagine your life 30 or 35 years from now. Or let's even just imagine the next 10 or 20 years. Even just imagining staying in the same job for 10 years or 15 years, I think personally that's enough to get you going. I mean, if the job you're working in now is kind of bearable and even enjoyable sometimes, and you like the colleagues, then maybe staying for that long is not that of a bad idea. But if it's the case that you really don't like your current job and you're really bothered by some things, and I think that's likely the case and the reason that you clicked on this podcast episode, then just imagine what kind of person you would become 10 to 15 years from now if you would just stay in that job. You might be a totally different person. You might turn out to be resentful and a grumpy and constantly irritated person. And that will have an effect not only on your own mental health and happiness, but also on the people around you. If you are severely unhappy in your job, in your career, and you force yourself to stay there, then ultimately that will negatively influence all the other people around you. They will feel that negative energy, that negative mood from you. So if you're afraid to change your job or make a complete career change, then simply imagine the opposite. What would happen if you stayed put in your current job and didn't do anything? How would your life turn out in 10 years from now? And be completely honest with yourself. By the way, if you're listening to this podcast episode on YouTube, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button, because that would let me know that you're enjoying this content, that you find it useful, and it would also help me to get this episode out to more people. Thank you. The third thing that you can do if you want to change your job but you're just so afraid of the whole process, and that is to look for and find a purpose. So sometimes the antidote to fear is excitement. So with many things in life, you can experience a mix of the emotions of fear and excitement. For example, if you go on a roller coaster ride, and that is of course if you enjoy roller coaster rides. And if you do, then you'll know that usually there will be a mix of excitement and fear. If it's just fear, then it's just no fun. I mean, why would you do it, right? And if it's just excitement, then you might have not chosen the right kind of roller coaster, because I think the excitement of riding on the roller coaster comes from that adrenaline rush and the tiny amount of fear that you experience along with it. So if the fear you're experiencing is not the life-threatening type, but more of the fear of discomfort type, then what you can actually do is try to ignore it and override it with a sense of excitement and purpose instead. But to do that, of course, you need to know what your purpose is. So the reason that this fear that you're feeling, this fear of discomfort, is dominating everything, and all you can think about is the negative aspects and the discomfort of the whole process, might be because you don't have a strong enough of a purpose. Because why would you sacrifice your comfort? Why would you sacrifice this cushy job you are in right now if there's not a bigger reward that you're working towards? So to balance out this feeling of fear, you need to have a purpose, something that is worth fighting for. And if you don't have it, you kind of need to start soul searching and ask yourself, okay, I want to change jobs because I feel that I'm not making any progress in my current company and that I'm not earning enough money. But what are you exactly hoping to get from your new job or from your career change? And yes, that might be monetary rewards, in which case you need to specify it. If currently, for example, in your job, you've been earning $52,000 for the last 8 years, and you're hoping to get a small bump in your new job and get, let's say, $65,000 instead, then maybe that might not be enough of a motivation to you. Maybe you have to aim for, let's say, $70,000. And while you might find that this sounds like a crazy increase, this is not impossible at all. Like I've said in one of my previous podcast episodes, oftentimes newcomers to an organization are valued more, and they are in a better position to negotiate the salary and the working conditions that they actually want compared to people who have been in the organization for a very long time. And I know that it's not fair, it doesn't seem to be fair, but we're not talking about fairness here. If you want to progress in your career, you simply have to be pragmatic and look at the possibilities. So if the opportunities for you as a newcomer are higher to negotiate a much higher salary, then why not? So to overcome this fear of changing jobs, you need to have a goal or a purpose that is really, really meaningful to you. So don't just aim for a salary increase, let's say to $70,000, but also connect that to a higher purpose. Why do I need $70,000? Why do I want $70,000? And the reason could be because you want to purchase your first house, or you want to be able to go on an extra vacation each year. And once you do that, you will feel that the excitement in you starts to build up. And once this feeling of excitement gets stronger and stronger, and you couple that with your purpose, then slowly this fear, this insignificant fear of discomfort, will start fading away. So what you need to do now to overcome this fear and override it with a sense of purpose and excitement is to imagine your life 10 years from now. Imagine where you want to be 10 years from now. And this is not just one of those interview questions where the interviewer asks you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? It goes far beyond that. So this is not just about your career, but also about your whole life. What kind of life do you imagine that you have in 10 years from now? And what kind of career or job will you need to have to support that kind of lifestyle? If you want to have a life in which you have a lot of time to spend with your family, with your kids, and going on vacations overseas and so on, and you want to be flexible, then you will likely need the kind of job that is flexible, that allows you to take some time off from work, that allows you perhaps to go on a sabbatical and allows you to have flexible hours and also remote work. So imagine where you want to be in 10 years from now, how your life looks 10 years from now in as granular detail as possible, and then work yourself backwards from there to this point today, and then ask yourself, okay, what kind of job do I need to change to, and what kind of steps do I need to take? And if you really believe in that purpose and in that ambitious goal of yours, then after a while you will think less and less of all your fears. By the way, in case right now in your career you're feeling kind of blah about your work, you're not really engaged, and you couldn't care less about what you're doing on a daily basis, then the reason might be that all this while you've been basing your career decisions on the wrong things. All this while you might have made career decisions based on the position or the titles that you can get, the salary, the monetary rewards, and also the recognition. And all this while you might have ignored the things that are really meaningful and fulfilling to you. And I know that this might sound like an abstract thing, but if you've ever done a specific kind of task or activity on the job, let's say that's training people, even though your main job is not a trainer, but part of your job requires you to train new people that come on board, and you feel that you're so satisfied after doing this and it brings you so much meaning. And when you apply these skills of training people, you feel that you were just meant to do this and you feel a sense of peace and satisfaction after that, then that is what fulfillment feels like. And having a career that is meaningful and fulfilling is something that I'll talk about in my upcoming book that I plan to finish this year and that is still lacking a title. But don't worry, I will keep you updated. So make sure that you subscribe to this podcast if you want to know more about that. The fourth thing that you can try and do if you are afraid of changing jobs is to mentally prepare yourself for rejections. So one kind of fear that I frequently observed in myself as well as in many other people is the fear of being rejected. So whether that's applying for a new job or trying to make new friends, asking someone out on a date, or trying to get funds for your new startup, there's always a fear of rejection. But the thing is that no matter what you do, if you're doing something that is truly worth fighting for, you will ultimately experience rejections, and likely many of those. So the bigger your goal is, the more ambitious you are, and the more meaningful the thing you're trying to do is, the more rejections you'll experience. So for example, when I was trying to get funds for my first feature film, I went around to dozens and dozens of people, and I must tell you, at one point I was so close to giving up because I did my pitch again and again. I got so bored of it. I got so frustrated hearing the word no, and no, we cannot support your project, etc. I was close to giving up. But then luckily I lost count of how many pitches I did, but at around the 50th pitch, I got an approval. I finally managed to get funds for my first feature film, and that was such a great feeling because my hard work finally paid off. But that would not have been possible without first experiencing those rejections. So you cannot expect to just get a yes, an approval, success on the first try. So everyone has to experience rejections, including when you're looking for a new job. And if you mentally prepare yourself for the fact that no matter what, that you will definitely experience a number of rejections before you get your ideal job or any job at all, then that will actually help you to deal with that fear. And the reason is because then you will no longer see those rejections as something that is scary or as something that shows that you are not worth of the job or that you are not capable enough, but that oftentimes in life it's just a matter of chance and possibilities, and you just need to diligently go through all these rejections until you find gold. And this is the reason why I say gold, because I want to connect this to a story in the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So in his book, Napoleon Hill tells of a time during the gold rush where a man tries to dig for gold without any success. So he's been spending a lot of his time and of his energy on this project, and he keeps digging, but he doesn't find anything. So after some time, he finally thinks, okay, this is not going to work, and just gives up. And as he quit, he sold all of his equipment that he used in his effort to find gold to a junk man. And this junk man was clever enough to get the advice of an engineer. And this engineer actually told him that he was only 3 feet away from gold. So this man continued to dig, and he finally stumbled upon this gold. So just imagine, the first person was so close to finding gold, and had he had the perseverance and the patience to just continue digging a bit longer, then he would be the one who would have found this gold. And the same applies to your job search. If you are trying to look for a new job or make a complete career change, and now even before you started the whole process, you are already afraid of all the rejections and the failures, then nothing will likely ever change. So try and start to prepare yourself mentally that no matter what, you will experience at least 10, 20, or even 50 or even 80 or even 100 rejections. But in the end, if you keep at it, and if you keep improving your interviewing skills, you keep upgrading your resume, and you continue networking with people, at some point you will definitely find a job that is better than the one you have now. And the fifth thing that you can do if you feel a sense of fear of changing jobs is to simply break down this enormous task into really, really small details. So, this is what often happens if we're faced with a very big challenge or a project. So, at first, when we look at this huge challenge or a project and it just seems so unsurmountable, then our first instinct is just to take a step back or even run from it because, oh my God, this is just too difficult. This is too tough, and the odds are against me, and I don't think that I will succeed at it, right? So, what you need to do in this case to deal with this kind of monster is to break it down into really small steps. And by this, I don't just mean step 1, create your resume, step 2, apply for jobs, step 2, wait. But you need to go into much more detail. Because let's say if number 1 says create your resume or update your resume, that alone can feel like a huge monster and something that is fear inducing and that you just don't want to face, right? So to make this less intimidating, you need to further break down this first step, which is create or update your resume. The first step could, for example, just be pull up your old resume and read through it. And to make sure that you actually do it, you can schedule an appointment with yourself. Yes, that's right. So tell yourself, for example, that, okay, next Saturday at 3 p.m. after my lunch and my coffee, I will pull up my old resume and just look at it. I will just read through my old resume, let it sink in, and then I will close the file and not do anything more about it. And step 2 could, for example, be update your latest work experience in your resume. And for that, again, a good idea is to make an appointment or a meeting with yourself where you plan to get that done. And just that. And it will take you maybe only 10 minutes. So the point here is that if you break things down into details that are so small and so easy to do, you will feel less resistance towards it, and you will also feel much less fear of it. So when you're really scared of doing something that feels like an enormous task, the key is to break it down into steps that seem childproof. Write it down in your calendar or in your scheduler. Write it down as a task that is so easy to understand for yourself that even when you're so tired after work, after a long day, you can look at it and you immediately understand what you need to do. And you're not thinking like, okay, resume, what was that again? So what do I actually need to do? What do I need to change? And so on, because you've stated it very clearly that you just need to add your most recent work experience on your resume. At first, these 5 things might sound too simple and too straightforward and not that promising. But believe me that once you start doing these 5 things, gradually you will experience less and less fear, and you can finally start your process of changing your job or making a complete career change so that in, let's say, 1 year from now, just imagine that 1 year from now, you will no longer have to work in this current job you're in right now that you cannot stand, that you hate, or that you're simply bored of. If you're listening to this on YouTube, I would really love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know where you currently are in your career, what the things are that you are worried about. And if you're in the process of changing jobs, looking for a new job, or changing careers, also let me know what you find your biggest obstacles and fears to be. I would really love to know. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I wish you an awesome week, and I'll see you again next time.